So much of your work, whether it's a podcast or a conference or your books, is about self-awareness.
Yeah.
And what does that mean to you when you talk about self-awareness?
Well, I think I'll talk about it this way. I don't think it's possible to do all the other things we want to do until we realize our starting point. How do we see the world? What have our experiences been? How do we perceive ourselves? It's like sometimes we're trying to find answers when it comes to parenting or how to be effective at work or how to be in an effective partnership, but we're not looking at we're not looking at the common denominator, which is us. What do we bring to the situation? What are our challenges? Why is my partner frustrating? Why do my kids, when they do or don't do something, why does it trigger me in such a way? And if we're not aware of who we are, our history, and what's important to us, it's not just about noticing all of the, if we want to even call them negative aspects or trauma experiences, it's about what do I need? What makes me come alive? What brings me joy? And if we're not aware of any of these things, we're kind of just working in the dark. We're just trying things, hoping that it works out. And so I kind of think about it as the starting point to everything.
Yeah. And I just really appreciate that. And it's one of the common threads in all the work that you do. And that Todd does too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just starting with self-awareness and looking within.
So then I want to know, how do you do self-awareness? I hear this a lot from people of like, yeah, that all sounds good and everything. But how do I do that? How do I find that? How do I become self-aware? Or am I self-aware? And I just like trying to figure it out, because I think we can go kind of a little nutty sometimes trying to be self-aware and trying to figure out what's going on. So what do you do? Or what would you guide people in doing?
I think about self-awareness. Obviously, I always call it a practice because it's ongoing, because every moment we continue to live, we have another experience that adds to our new awareness, right? So we're constantly, chronically being self-aware. But instead of thinking about it as a chore, I think about it as kind of I've been saying for a while, a moment-to-moment experience, but that sounded too daunting to a lot of parents that I worked with. They're like, do I really have to think about myself every moment? I'm like, no, that's true. But a day-to-day practice of how do I feel right now? Like, what is happening right now? What am I looking at right now? I actually, just as an example, I teach at a small university outside of Chicago. I teach social work. And our class this morning, we were talking about these things like how to be more self-aware, how to be more present with ourselves. And I was explaining to them that sometimes in the morning before I go be with people, I try and sit until I can, and this is going to sound really like mindfulness jargon, but I'll try and make it more accessible. I try and sit until I can hear now. And what I mean by that is we don't realize how in our heads we are all the time. And that when I can hear the dryer, the bird outside, the wind, and kind of recognize that I'm here, I feel like I'm aware of what's happening. Now, that's more of a present, that's like a paying attention, a mindfulness experience, but that is self-awareness too. Self-awareness is pretty broad. But self-awareness is also about recognizing your history. So for some people, the starting point is, who am I? Let's say they're a parent. Why did I decide to have kids? What is it that I want to impart? What are the parts of me that I feel like are strengths, and what are the parts where I may need some assistance? I feel like a lot of self-awareness can come from a therapeutic relationship or a coaching relationship with somebody, having a therapist, having a coach. Some of it comes through things like yoga or just day-to-day experiences. It doesn't have to be something structured, but all you're doing, like, and again, the words that when they become too like, again, like jargony or mainstream, where we're like, what are we even talking about here? All it really is acknowledging who you are, honoring who you are, your history, and currently what you want. And then also paying attention to this moment we're in. Like, what can I do now? So that, I know that still may sound a little like, how do I bring all that together? But that's at least a starting point in how to be aware of it. And then it's the little things. It's very like, even coming down here, I was telling you guys before we started, like I was trying to get all the equipment together. And I get so frustrated at myself. And then I have a moment where I laugh and I'm like, this is like such a thing that I tend to go through. This is just, it's part of being Cathy. And instead of feeling shameful about it or like chronically frustrated, I have a sense of humor about it because there's other things I do exceptionally well, but technology is not one of them. And it's okay, right? Like it's okay. I'm not good at everything.